Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter, and welcome to College, the podcast. We discussed an awful lot today, Peggy and myself. The first thing that we hit on, because it's very time sensitive, is for those that had federal student loans that were in default, so those that hadn't made a payment in 270 days or more, have basically been in purgatory for the last 5 years. That is over. You're going to have to start making payments, or the federal government is going to come after you starting May 5th. We talk about what to do if you or somebody you know fits into that category. There was some sweeping announcements made. We got some details in terms of what the federal government has been teasing for these higher education changes, and we hit on what we think are the 5 biggest bullet points. Number 1, no more unsubsidized loans. Number 2, no more graduate or plus loans. Number 3, significant changes to the Pell Grant program. Number 4, the consolidation of income-driven repayment plans. And number 5, and we love this one, and we're going to spend more time talking about it than we got to today, and that is colleges having more accountability in this massive investment that is sending kids to college. If you don't already, please like us, please follow us. Thanks for coming. Hi, Peg.
Hey, Carp, how's it going? How was your we took a break, so we haven't seen everybody for a week, but the last time you were on vacay, so did you have a good vacay?
It depends what you call vacay. We did some in-laws. We got out of there, relatively unscathed, but I got to see my brother and my nephew, so that was more of the vacay variety.
Awesome.
So we had we had more pros than cons there. So that's a win. But I think maybe the last time I was on here was even before my morning jacket one big holiday, right?
No, we were on, and you were boasting about your tan, so that was post.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you. Well, let's talk about that again. How you doing, buddy?
I am good. I am very good.
And you're not ready to make your new announcement yet? I assume.
I can make I guess I can make my announcement.
It's up to you. It's when you're ready, pal.
I will be moving to Sunshine. Not for still a few more weeks. I'm up in the Pacific Northwest. Lovely, beautiful area of the country. A little gloomy. We've been here for quite a long time. Shockingly, like over 20 years. For me, I'm a move arounder, so that's amazing. But it's been wonderful, bittersweet. But it's time for a new adventure. So going down to Tucson.
Well, yeah. Well, Tucson's lucky to have you. Get ready, Tucson. You got a party coming. Bill and Peggy. Pool in a hot tub, no less.
Pool in a hot tub. Yep. Completely different life. So
you guys have earned it, buddy. We're psyched for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, guess what? We got lots to talk about again. So the kind of most immediate thing that is happening, and if you fall into this category, I'm going to urge you to take action today. I was on a radio program in Cincinnati yesterday, and that was my main take, was like, you cannot put your head in the sand here. And what I mean is this: loans that were in default. So if you had a federal loan and your loan was in default, meaning you hadn't made a payment in 270 days, okay? So officially considered default, you were basically when COVID happened, you went on a probationary period, actually. You essentially caught a lucky break where the federal government said, we're not going to, quote unquote, come after that money during COVID, and it's extended well beyond that. So now we're coming up on essentially 5 years that this 5 million borrowers, it's not a small number, 5 million borrowers were in default. And one silver lining for them, COVID silver lining, was they said, okay, look, we can keep it in default and really not have you be punished for it, essentially. That's gone. Starting May 5th, which is obviously just around the corner here, they are going to be coming after that money, okay? And they are going to garnish wages. If you're on a fixed income, if you're just on Social Security, they're going to come after your Social Security. So they are going to, the chickens have come home to roost, so to speak, okay? What does this mean? What should you do about it? You need to contact your service provider today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Contact them today. It's not the Department of Education. It's one of, again, a handful of service providers like Mahela, if that's the pronunciation. I always screw it up, or AidVantage, right? Wherever you get your statements from. And you need to go work out a repayment plan with them. Now, if you have a lower income, if you're on a fixed income, you can get on an income-driven repayment plan to make sure that this isn't too painful from a monthly cash flow standpoint. But if you do not do that, you're automatically going to be kind of default to the highest monthly payment. And again, they're going to garnish your wages, Social Security, et cetera, at the highest percentage, right? 15% seems to be the kind of average number that they're using there. So please take action today. I know this is not good news, and I'm sure a lot of folks are just like, maybe this will just go away forever, and I'm going to keep my head in the sand, and it stinks, but we have to do it. So please take action today. Right. And that's kind of my messaging. Peg, do you have anything to layer on there?
Yeah, no, just this is a thing. It's happening, and it's just it's really important that you get your head around it, like Matt said. Reach out to your loan servicer because you should know what you're going to owe, how they're going to pull it from your account. I mean, it's a big deal because if they're pulling it from your checking account, you got to make sure you've got the funds there. You don't want other things bouncing. I mean, it can snowball and not be good. So you want to get your head around it. It's really not something, they had this break for a while, but it's over and there isn't much time, right? You said May 5th, right?
May
So
5th, yeah, 5/5. I mean,
yeah, that's the
talking
beginning of, wait, what's today?
it's
It's
next
next
week,
week.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yes, it's a big deal. Talk to your loan servicer, and I would just say have some patience. Be ready to potentially sit on hold, or if you can chat with them online, that's even better because you could get something in writing. But allocate some time, get your hands around it so that you're moving forward with your best foot forward with this
And
new
we'll,
repayment.
and we'll see if we can keep this somewhat brief, Peggy, because honestly, we could do probably more than one podcast on just this um, question alone. And we were just talking about it a little bit in the green room there, and we were kind of laughing at how we put out our position paper right a few weeks ago, and we had a lot of great feedback on social media and other places, and just started conversations, which is one of our first and biggest goals of like, let's have this conversation. But very quickly, and I think it was one of the comments, it got out of control where somehow somebody or some people interpreted some of our messaging to be like, hey, federal loans should be forgiven. Now, in no way did we say that, but whatever. It got kind of lost in the noise. So we had to insert ourselves in some of these conversations. And I know a lot of these 5 million borrowers were hoping that they were going to have their loans forgiven and maybe certainly hoping, maybe thought they were going to, like, what's your just general philosophy around that concept, I guess?
I have a hard time with loan forgiveness. I mean, that I'm a financial planner by background. And so to me, it's all about, I'm not saying people that have loans are irresponsible. Loans are part of a college funding strategy, but taking out a responsible amount of debt is on all of us. It was on me when my kids were in college. It's on each of us to think through that and not just take what a college gives us. We're going to talk a little bit more about accountability for colleges today, but they're not accountable, right? They want you to buy their products, so they're going to just throw out whatever's out there and say, see, this is great. It's just like when you go to buy something in the store and it's $1,000 and it says, but you can make payments $20 a month. Well, is that a responsible thing to do? It might, because that's an essential thing and you can't afford it, but it might not. So that's on the consumer, and we're consumers. You're going to be a consumer with Emma. I was a consumer with my kids. You guys are all consumers in this process with decisions that you can make. So nobody should go into taking loans with the idea that, hey, this is going to get forgiven. I know there were some strategies, and you used to talk about them, Carp, with the plus loan, where down the road you could be thinking, hey, I could get forgiveness. That also always made me nervous with any administration, because like that could go away, and we're going to
Which it
talk about
did.
that today, right? Yeah, you can't count on that. To me, it's make a responsible decision with what's affordable and have your head around it as the parent, as the guardian, as the student, whoever you are. I know it's hard and it's kind of yucky to think about money and numbers for a lot of people. It's not your go-to, but it's just vital. So don't even be in the bucket where you have to think about these things or have a reasonable amount of debt. So it's like, oh, well, if worst case scenario happens, am I still okay? That's my take, not, hey, you're going to get a bailout. Because I know you hear a lot of people, well, I paid off my loans. Well, they might be in a different situation than somebody else. They're lower economic level and all those kind of things. I'm all for helping people get more education, because for a certain kid, it's a game changer in their life. If that's the chapter they should go to, is 4-year school or whatever it is, trade school, community college. But Yeah, that's kind of my long-winded. I don't love loan forgiveness because when Biden came out with this stuff several years ago, I literally had parents saying, "Well, why don't I just take out loans? I don't need them, but
Exactly.
they'll get forgiven." And I was like, this is exactly the mentality that we don't
Yeah.
want to have.
So to that point, Becky, like my quick take on it is number one, it does nothing to solve this college problem at large.
Exactly.
And to your comment right there, I would argue it exasperates it. If all the federal loans get forgiven right now, that's going to encourage consumers to borrow more, colleges to continue to raise their prices because they're going to get blank checks, and around we go, right? So
Exactly.
again, I would argue to even make our college problem worse. And the second one, you used the word earlier, and I think it is kind of the word accountability. Right. And yes, we want to try to hold the government more accountable. We want to try to hold colleges more accountable, other stakeholders more accountable. But guess what? We as consumers also have to have some more accountability here too. And we're the ones that signed on a dotted line to take this loan to try to make this investment happen. And we have to live with the end result of that. Now, again, we're going to do a better job as a system to put some guardrails around, how that works and how much these individuals are borrowing and for what school and what major, et cetera. And we have lots to say around that, of course, but that's the long and the short. Okay, let's switch gears and get into what I really think it's getting no press whatsoever yet, right? Because I just think maybe there's obviously other things that the kind of mainstream media is prioritizing as headlines right now. But I would argue of all the stuff around the Department of Education over these last 100 plus days and federal cuts and research programs and folks getting deported, all this news that's happened in the college ecosystem, this was the most substantial update, in my opinion, of where they actually gave some details that kind of supported what's been more of a high level meta. Here's what we're going to do, and kind of teasing some general directions. But they've gone on record and say, here's what we're proposing. Right. And there's really 5 big bullet points that we want to spend some time on. And I'll start with the first one here. Starting next year, so this is July 1st, 2026, no more federal direct subsidized loans. And Peggy, if you can, number one, explain what that is and just kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and let me just even go a little higher and just frame this for everybody. So the House of Representatives is proposing this student success and taxpayer savings plan. So they're proposing this, and as Matt said, we're discussing the details of what they're proposing. It'll then go to the Senate. So that is one of the proposals. And you and I chatted about this, Carp, like, hey, this could very easily happen. So the direct federal student loans, any student is eligible for this. All they do is submit the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So very low barrier of entry. It's really I always said this for years, it's a federal government encouraging kids, but not always kids, adults, whoever, to further their education, undergraduate education. And there's 2 different types of federal direct student loans. There's a subsidized version and an unsubsidized version. Now, realize there's major caps on these loans. For most students, it could be 27,000 over 4 years. So that's not causing our student debt crisis, right? If every kid or student stayed under that 27,000, we're not out of control. That's not what happened here. So to me, this is not the perpetrator of all of this. The subsidized version, as the name kind of hints, basically the student is not paying interest until 6 months after graduation. So the government's covering that, right? So it's a perk for lower income people. Actually, I'll take that away, however you want to define lower income. If you have financial need at a school, and many people do at schools that cost $100,000 now, they can get the subsidized version. There's caps on that. That's 19,000 over 4 years for almost all kids or students. Then there's an unsubsidized version. Same loan, but interest starts accruing when you take it out like regular loan. So this was the main government program to give. It's not paying for school, maybe community college, but it's not going to pay the whole bill, but it was helpful to a lot of families. So that's how that works. But they're talking about, getting rid of the only having unsubsidized loans, which is not shocking to me. Just listening to the Trump administration and just their philosophies that they've shared, it's like they want to get out of the loan business, staying in unsubs. They're still in the loan business, but they're not, it's not helping those group of families that are lower. What do you say, carp? I mean, I call them mid-income. I mean, I don't know even know how we're defining this uniformly, but there's many, many families that
You can
are
make
eligible for this
$250,000.
because of the cost of college.
You can make $250,000 more and still be eligible for
I know.
subsidized loans at some
Yeah.
colleges, right? Over 300,000. I should change that, and that's again kind of imperfect, but hopefully gives the whatever some framing with that. Look, of all the five kind of main bullet points of these proposed changes, I think this one has the kind of least impact because that loan program, at least next year, according to this proposal, will still remain intact. It's just going to get a little bit more expensive, right? And it's not crazy expensive. They're not, but the principles of it, right? You still don't need a cosigner. You still don't need established credit. You're still not going to get a bill until 6 months after you graduate from college. And again, I think barring the unexpected, the interest rates will continue to be reasonable and there'll be flexible repayment terms. So it's just one of
And
these.
they're fixed, which is huge. So
So it's a change, and obviously people don't want to pay interest. None of us do, right? So that's going away. But all in all, in the grand scheme of things, I don't see a huge impact with this. Okay, I cannot say the same for the second. We're proposing getting rid of graduate plus loans, okay, and parent plus loans. And parent plus loans are loans for parents that are borrowing to send their students to go get a undergraduate college degree. We're proposing getting rid of both of these, and we'll talk about that's kind of they're not really getting rid of the grad plus loan, and we'll give our opinions around that. But the plus loans, especially getting rid of that starting even next year. Now I made the bold prediction. I'm officially wrong, Peggy. Congratulations. I'm officially wrong that would happen this year. But damn, they're not
I
messing.
told you.
I know, Peggy. I went out on a limb. Okay, that's why it's a bold prediction. But
Full
anyway,
slash foolish, whatever you want to call it.
yeah, well, yeah, no, yeah, that's right.
Just easy.
So again, this is massive. All right, this is massive. But just talk about your thoughts there.
Yeah, so the plus loan, or used to be called parent plus loan, which I continue to call because, as Matt said, it truly is one of the parents, one of the biological parents can apply. It's almost instantaneous, and it's almost always an approval, even when it shouldn't be. So it was not a great loan for many families from the get-go. It allowed them to be able to quote unquote pay, because they're using somebody else's money, for a college that most of the time was not affordable for the family. So I've been against this for a while, not en masse, but there's a few situations where I was like, all right, this makes sense for your family. But the one thing that was super bad about this loan, and this gets into college accountability, is what the colleges could do and did all the time. When a child gets into school, they get a financial aid package, and they would say, we cost 60, here's your federal direct student loans. Hey, we're giving you a $10,000 scholarship. Oh, the difference is 35,000. Well, don't worry, here's your parent plus loan. It pays for it. The bill is zero. Well, the bill is 35,000 plus whatever loans the student's taking out. But I can't tell you how many times, and Matt saw this over and over, parents would see that and say, okay, it's paid for. We can afford this. We can do it. And they can't afford it. And all of a sudden, most parents would start making payments while their child was in school, big payments. The interest rate was much higher. For example, it's over 9% now. The student loan is 6.53. So big delta, bless you. And there was also a huge loan origination fee, like over 4%, just kicking parents in the butt when they took it out. So it was not a good vehicle, in my opinion, most of the time to have available. And where the private market might say to that parent, hey, we're not going to give you a loan, you're not a good risk, or it's just an outrageous interest rate for us to take the risk, that I would hope the family would say, well, this is not affordable for our family, and choose another school. The government was basically helping these families get into sizable debt that could ruin the parents' future, because on paper, the student, I told them, yeah, I say that all the time. It's like, doesn't matter what agreement you have with your child, they're not on the hook for this. You're the only one that's on the hook. So I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's going to burn a little bit, and that's a whole nother podcast to talk about why somebody is so focused on one school and they're willing to do anything to make it happen. But it's going to save people from themselves in certain circumstances from an affordability standpoint, hands down.
I think that's a good way to say it because there's going to be some really harsh realities here. I mean, let's be clear. Where some folks are going to be in college, and the only way they could make college happen was this plus loan. That's the only way that they qualified for it. And all of a sudden, it's not going to be there the next year, and they're not going to be eligible to take out a private student loan, right? Or same thing, a student that even a new student that again maybe that would have been their only option that they qualified for a loan. They're not going to get it, so they're not going to be able to go to that school, or they're going to have to leave that school, which I think is even the harder one for these folks that are already in school. And so like I don't have, for those really hard cases where even if families were overextending themselves, but it was still a good investment because it's the best fit for this kid, and they're they're in it for all the right reasons, that even if they were overextending themselves, they're going to get it back. Like how do we right kind of that wrong? And I don't have a good answer for that right now, but I agree with you. And this is why we are proposing to get rid of all federal funding, right? Because for most people, not having these guardrails just sets them up for failure, right? That's why, kind of on the whole, it's just not working for too many people, right? And we need to help get people out of their own way, right? And this again is that most would argue, and you've heard us say this more than once if you've listened to us anywhere, most would argue, and we agree with this, the plus loan is the number one culprit for the skyrocketing costs of college, right? Of why it continues to remain out of control. Of course, it's not the only variable, of course, right? But if I had to pick one, and I think just about everybody on our team would say this, and anybody that studies again this world would say that that's the number one culprit, because again, it's a blank check for these colleges with no accountability, even when they know it's not a good decision, right, for this student, for this family.
Well, and I think you bring up a very good point and I thought about this with other things that the Trump administration is putting out, is that we really have to think about, okay, if you're going to do this, the people that are in the system now, the students that are in the system now that are relying on these, there has to be a way to step in and say, we're going to honor your deal. I mean, because to your exact point, like a kid's a sophomore in college, and then it's like, oh, now I have to transfer somewhere completely different. Obviously,
Maybe they were thriving.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, and so that upends that kid's life. That's not okay. Same thing with accreditation that's coming down. Like, you have to be careful how you do this and how it affects people that are in the system now. You could, and I'm saying this logistically, how do you do this? I don't have all the answers to that, but some sort of in the concept of grandfathering people that are in there. Hey, you had a strategy that was relying on this, so that will continue to be there. People that are seniors in high school or starting grad school, whatever, from a certain date on, these aren't available. But for people, and then give them so much time to finish school so they can leverage those. And here's a thought, maybe even give them a little education about how to do it in the right way, and maybe not even leverage the Parent Plus loans, and the government. I would be happy to spend my taxpayer money to help people and support them on that to get through it. But that's a great point, that it's not just, we hate these, you took them. That's not my stance. It's like, you're in it. I want that student to be able to finish. They made a decision to be at a certain institution. They're there. They're probably thriving. How do you get through and finish? And I think the government has that responsibility. If they offered it with a certain idea that this was ongoing, finish it out for those students.
I mean, I think, and I think that's the answer, right? So, okay, starting July 1st, 2026, if you're entering college, those are not available to you. If you're already relying on them and you're in college, right? And one thing could be, if you hadn't taken them previously, you can't take them now, right? But if you had already taken these previously, you're already enrolled in college, you can use them for the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? And
that's not going to blow things up. The change will make things better in the long run, but then it doesn't destroy people's trajectories that are already in the system.
100%. So, and again, that's where the nuance comes in here, right? Where a lot of these things look great on paper, and we'll say, well, but what about these individuals, these human beings that it's, gonna be impacting here? So, all right, Peg, let's move on to the next one. We're gonna see some changes to Pell Grants, right? They didn't offer details around, how specifics around how some of these what some of these changes are, right? Just that there's going to be different qualifications left. One actual data point that they did mention that concerns me a little bit is, you're not going to be eligible for Pell Grants if you take less than 6 credits. Now, again, on the surface, like, okay, fair enough, no big deal. But a great example that I saw, this I can't take credit for this, but it, really, I don't know, made an impression on me, is we're describing, students, or whether it's younger students or adults that are trying to go to community college, that have to work part-time, but also want to put themselves through college and are relying on Pell Grants in order to pay through that part-time community college. I don't want to get rid of Pell Grants for that group of people. So that's where, again, our position paper, we are huge proponents as a part of these changes. We have free community college, which obviously just kind of alleviates that challenge, anything around community college. But I do worry about that one data point that they released for some of these Pell Grant changes. And again, just curious to get any insights.
Yeah, I would argue that scenario, that person you've just described, they're the most deserving of these Pell Grants. That was the essence of why they were created. So I 100% agree that, don't put those guardrails on those kind of kids. That's a certain, why are they, it's not because they're lazy most of the time that they're taking less than 6 hours. I get it. In other areas, you're supposed to be a full-time student to get X, Y, and Z, but for Pell, yeah, that student that's working maybe 30, 35 hours a week to pay for stuff, maybe helping to take care of the household in different ways, that's a game changer. And if you take it away, again, you're just changing the trajectory for that student and what they're going to impact the world. So I 100% agree that should be gone. And what makes me feel good about all these is that, again, like I said at the beginning, this is what the House is proposing, and then it has to go to the Senate. Hopefully that piece will go bye-bye in my mind.
And I thought you mentioned something when we were talking previously that a change that you saw around the Pell Grant was making up the difference for something.
Well, they know there's an expected shortfall and they're going to meet that. And we've talked about that before, where like the press likes to come out and go, Pell Grants are underfunded. Yeah, they are, but they're an entitlement program. So the government, Congress either has to like get rid of them, which you hear here, even the House isn't bringing that up, but you have to fund it. So then they go and borrow from here or there so that it's funded, but they know there's the shortfall and they're even thinking of beefing it up. So I didn't read anything that told me, this is going to go bye-bye. I don't know in the government who comes up with these things and what their knowledge base is, because they really need to think about the use cases when they're creating this stuff. And we've already touched on that a few times already, the use case. And I know, it's been brought up when you make changes, you don't want to do analysis paralysis, which the government, I think, is great at, and then nothing ever happens. They're actually really good at that in the state of Washington too. But there's the other side where you're just doing it too quickly. It's just like they say, a chainsaw instead of a scalpel. Bring in learned people that have been around the block, that know how these things work, and then look at use cases. And this is a perfect example. Fewer than
Did you just nominate yourself for Secretary of Education, Peggy? Is that what I heard? Was that the? All
I
right.
don't think I would be PC enough for government. Although the current administration is.
I was gonna say, sister, I don't know, you might fit right in there. All right. So this next one here, I'm having a hard time poking holes around the negatives here. I'm sure I'm missing something, but I see it largely as a positive. So, or as kind of neutral. But that is so. Right now, there was just a matter of weeks ago 5 different income-driven repayment plans. So basically, if I have a federal government student loan, I'm in a repayment phase. There was 5 different options of how I could have my monthly payment tied to my income in some way, a correlation there, right? That would, with the goal being kind of capping my maximum monthly payment that I have to make based on what I'm repaying. So I think probably overkill there. So there was 5. We got rid of one, the SAVE program, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, thereabouts. Now we're saying, you know what, we don't need 4 income-driven repayment plans. We're going to consolidate those into one, and there's some kind of interesting specifics in there. But do you have any kind of knee jerks there, Peggy? Good, bad, and different?
Well, I mean, they have proposed like you have to make payments for 30 years before it's forgiven.
as
you
opposed
know.
to 20 or 25, right? So
Yeah,
right,
so that's a lot longer, and
a
like
meaningful
really
change.
in 30 years you're not almost done at that point, so it might not be as meaningful. They did bring up that they're trying to avoid, this is where people just get into such hot water, this negative amortization. So basically, that sounds like a frou-frou word, but what it means is you're making a payment and it's not even covering your interest. So then your interest goes into your principal and it blows up. I mean, you see this with orthodontists. I mean, it's not just John Q. Public just trying to pay for undergrad. You see this happening, and I thought that was good that they at least have that on their radar and they're trying to avoid that. I don't know how they're really gonna do that, if they're
Well,
gonna make.
I think it, and I think that was a trade-off pay. The justification that I saw, which again, I think we haven't had enough time to digest this, so we're going with
I
like,
mean, it literally just came out. Yeah.
yeah, we're going with knee-jerk instincts here, right? In terms of trying to form some an opinion and have a reaction. But it's like, okay, the forgiveness programs, if you make repayments, under the current repayment plans, between 20 and usually more commonly 25 years, anything that's left on your loan is forgiven after that, right? And in most cases, you're going to pay a tax hit on that forgiven amount, so you're still paying some additional amount there to back to the federal government via tax. That's going to be extended to 30 years. So on the surface, that stinks. But I do like this concept of we're going to avoid negative amortization. So if you cannot make a payment that eats into the principal of your loan on a monthly basis, if the interest that accrues is higher than your monthly loan payment, we're going to basically forgive the interest on that. And you just
Right.
owe us. You just owe us the principal. And I like that. And guess what? I can personally relate to this because when Rosie graduated from law school, right, took out a huge loan. Neither of us are making any type of meaningful money, and this is the exact position that we were in. Obviously, it was her loan, but we're family unit that we were in kind of collectively here, and it was just so bad for morale, right? Like we're making kind of like as a big a monthly payment as we can, and our loans going up each
Yeah.
month. Like
Yeah.
it sucks,
Gotta
and
be
again, we're working
demoralizing.
off.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get started, trying to start a business. She's trying to start her career. And we're just like, and we kind of did just have to be like, you know what, we can't look at this is not good for our mental health. We'll just work as hard as we can and we'll, hope that things work out, which obviously, fortunately they did. But so again, I don't know. I might be too emotionally attached to it to be able to kind of like think clearly, but I don't know. I appreciated the sentiment of that. And guess what? They're still getting their money back. We're not forgiving it. I mean, we still have to pay our money back, but maybe it's with less interest. So anyways, that's kind of my quick story there. Okay, so this one is we're gonna do podcasts around a whole podcast, probably multiple ones around this. So we will have to do our best to keep this brief. But I think you and we said this, the thing that we latched onto the most with these changes, even though they really have not been defined yet, but we loved a lot of the language and the spirit here, was we have to hold colleges more accountable here. They are a major stakeholder here. They do not have enough meaningful skin in the game with the end result of these students. These students and families that are giving them massive amounts of money, if they have a bad end result, if they get no return on that investment, negative return on the investment, the college is no worse for wear, right? Yes, there's some brand damage, reputational damage, and things like this, but like there's no real tangible consequences. That money's still coming, right? The federal government specifically is still going to write those blank checks regardless of what happens with those, right? And so again, obviously we are totally aligned with this. And what does it mean exactly? There's the longer conversation, but just like, give me your quick 2 cents, Peggy.
Yeah, well, one of the pieces of this in this plan is that colleges would have to pay the government a portion of the unpaid loans. I think that is brilliant, right? I think they have to have skin in the game here. They can't just put this massive loan on a financial aid package knowing the parents and the student are just so excited that it's like, we'll do whatever we need to do to make this happen. And then they're just committing financial ruin to their family. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I mean, you and I have seen it over and over and over again, right? And it just reverberates. So it's a huge paradigm shift for these colleges. And I'm sorry, but I'm not even sorry. They need to start owning this, right? They need to start having accountability. Families and guardians and parents need more accountability, but so do the colleges. And as I've said a million times, that they're laughing all the way to the bank because consumers keep doing it hook, line, and sinker with the help of the government. So I think this is a very positive step. I hope this continues to be in the language, and the Senate embraces this. And these colleges, it's like, it's about time. They've got to make a shift here. They've got to be more responsible. Like, one of our experts on our team used to run financial aid at USC, University of Southern California. And he used to tell families, he's shared it with our team, like, hey, you don't want to come here. This is not affordable. But I think he's potentially an anomaly. I don't think they're doing that at colleges. They know, especially these brand name schools where people are literally buying brand to go, that they've got them hook, line, and sinker, and they're going to do whatever they can. And so I think this will help. It's going to be a massive change, and there's a lot of lobbyists out there that are going to be lobbying for higher ed to not have this happen. So I hope this pushes through in this philosophy in some piece so that it's part of our world ongoing. I think it will be a huge positive.
I mean, it feels like a win, even that it's like they're on record. They're using these words like colleges need to have more accountability, right? Like, so I feel like there's some inertia that's moving in the right direction here. And again, they haven't said this yet as an administration, but again, and I think that they should, that look at, they can connect the dots here, right? And again, it's a lot of what our position paper ultimately gets to, that if some of these things happen and just kind of, let the markets play out the way that they should kind of play out naturally, it's going to drive college prices down. Right? Like, that's what we are ultimately trying to do. We want to keep accessibility, right? And again, let's be clear here. This is a very challenging problem that we're trying to solve here. And I'm sure that we're going to have iterations from our position paper. Again, we just want it to be thoughtful and say, here are some things that we can actually implement that we think could lead to change. And are we going to be the first ones to get it perfect? I'm sure no. But again, it's exciting to see some of the powers that be sharing this kind of sentiment, again, specifically with this college accountability. Now, they didn't give us too many hints as to, like, okay, what does that mean specifically? But some of the language used was that the colleges will pay the government a portion of unpaid loans. Okay, now that's a pretty powerful sentence there, right? I mean, that one jumped off the page to me, and I said, oh boy, that's kind of what we're talking about. We have a slightly different angle here that, again, the spirit is very comparable, where, we're proposing that, look, if for colleges to basically put their money where their mouth is. So if you think this kid is a great fit for your school, and you think if they excel here, you're going to help be a bridge to their, career, right? And the next opportunities that they go ahead and earn, co-sign on their loan. Help them get a better rate in the private sector, or better yet, put your money where your mouth is, give them a loan, right? We know some of these colleges have their own loans, and they're usually great. They're great loans. The biggest problem with them, air quotes here, is that they're capped. They're usually not very much in the way of how much they can actually let folks borrow. So again, I love the spirit of it. More details to come. We're going to be all over it. We're excited again, at least about, okay, good. The colleges are going to have some skin in the game here, along with the other stakeholders like the federal government, like us, are certainly us as consumers. And I guess, I don't know, we fit in there somewhere, Peggy.
Yeah. And we just want to stay tuned, because if it gets through the House, then it goes to the Senate. It'll probably be, it'll be shifted. And that's the whole thing. If, the Senate is saying that they've always been, keep the federal direct student loans. Yep. The plus loans could be axed. So, we'll see where that goes. And Matt and I are not here today to say, oh, well, if the Parent Plus loans go away, then on the undergraduate level, all the problems are solved. Because we've talked about, there's private loans. They could collude, it's not, oh, we're all done, wipe our hands. The problem
not all cupcakes and rainbows, Peggy. It's not all
exactly.
Cupcakes.
So, but it's just interesting to see these iterations and to look at them. And then there's some interesting stuff thrown out there, some things that we don't agree with, some that might end up having positive effects on people and students and families and their finances.
All right, buddy. We'll appreciate your insights as always. Congratulations publicly on your move to the sun here. I will look forward to, indulging in that when the
Yes,
you're
yes.
in the
You
house.
got to come and take a dip and hang out in the hot tub, cocktails, sunset, what could be
We'll
better?
have to do a poolside, won't we? A poolside pod there. So we'll look forward to that. All right, Peggy, appreciate you, buddy. We'll see you out there.
All right. Bye-bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Follow us, like us, etc. Forgot to say that
Yeah.
at the beginning. Bye. Okay, as always, thanks for listening today. If you don't already, please follow us, please like us, please share this podcast for anybody that you think might benefit. I want to, of course, thank, as always, my co-host, Peggy Keough, formerly of Seattle, about to be from Tucson, of course, originally from New Jersey, our Jersey girl, and our producer, Eileen Campbell, who does a great job each week. And please tune in next week.